You know, every so often, the global financial system, this incredibly complex machine we've built for growth and efficiency, it just seems to turn on itself. It descends into total chaos. But this isn't random. It's not an accident. It's a breakdown that has a predictable, almost biological anatomy. And today, we're going to dissect it.
And right away, that brings us to the core puzzle, doesn't it? The very things that are designed to make this system work so well, sharing risk, creating credit, are the exact same things that make it so incredibly fragile. It's a system where its greatest strengths are, quite literally, its most catastrophic weaknesses. So to really get our heads around this, we need to look at the elemental forces at play. Okay, so to understand how a well-oiled machine can just seize up, we've got to look at the three elemental forces that govern this entire ecosystem. And these aren't just abstract ideas from a textbook. They are active, powerful agents that are constantly interacting in really volatile ways.
First up, you've got confidence. And look, this isn't just a feeling. It's the invisible glue holding the whole thing together. It's the shared belief that allows millions of perfectly rational people, like you and me, not to pull all of our money out of the bank at the exact same time. The second that belief even starts to waver, the only logical choice is to run for the exits. And that's when the prophecy of collapse fulfills itself.
Next, there's liquidity. Honestly, the best way to think about it is as the system's lifeblood. It's just the ability to sell what you own to pay what you owe. Now, in normal times, it's everywhere. It's abundant. But in a crisis, when fear takes over, poof, it can vanish in a heartbeat. Markets just freeze, and suddenly even the most valuable assets can't be sold, and the entire circulatory system of finance just grinds to a halt.
And finally, we get to leverage, the great amplifier. Using debt to invest, that's the engine of modern finance. It's how fortunes are made, no doubt. But it is a massive double-edged sword. It pours gasoline on everything. It makes the good times better and the bad times so much worse. And when things do go south, that exact same force turns small losses into system-wide meltdowns.
Now, here's what's absolutely crucial to understand. These three forces, confidence, liquidity, and leverage, they don't exist in separate boxes. They form what you could call an unstable trinity. A dip in confidence causes liquidity to dry up, which forces all the leveraged players to sell their assets, which then, of course, shatters confidence even more. They're all locked together in this fragile, self-reinforcing dance that is always teetering on the edge.
So, all of this brings us to one of the most profound and, frankly, unsettling truths about finance, something called the rationality trap. This is where we see how a series of perfectly logical, completely self-interested decisions can add up to a collective outcome that is catastrophic for absolutely everyone.
And this is where you can really see that tension play out. On an individual level, my choice, the logic is flawless. You sense danger, you protect yourself. You get your money out. But when every single person makes that same smart choice at the same time, our collective outcome becomes inevitable, and it's a disaster.
Let's just walk through it. An investor sees trouble on the horizon. What does she do? She sells assets to cut her losses. Perfectly rational. A bank gets worried about the future. What does it do? It hoards cash instead of lending it out. Also perfectly rational. But when everybody sells at once, prices don't just fall, they spiral. And when every bank hoards cash, the credit market freezes solid. It's the ultimate paradox. Individual self-preservation leads to collective destruction.
So how does this trap actually spring shut? Well, it doesn't happen slowly. It happens through a cascade, a powerful, vicious feedback loop where the system literally begins to tear itself apart. This is the climax. This is the heart of the crisis.
And right at the center of that cascade is a mechanism called the fire sale doom loop. It sounds dramatic because it is. It starts with a small price drop. That triggers margin calls for anyone using leverage, basically their broker demanding more cash now. To get that cash, they're forced to sell assets into an already falling market. Of course, those sales push prices down even further, which triggers, you guessed it, more margin calls and more forced selling. It is a vicious, accelerating spiral downwards.
And if you think this is just theory, just look at the numbers from 2008. They are absolutely terrifying. An initial capital loss of around $100 billion got magnified by leverage. For a bank that was leveraged 10 to 1, that loss forced them to shrink their lending by almost $1 trillion. $1 trillion of credit just vanished from the real economy. That is the rationality trap in its most brutal form, a financial black hole created by everyone doing what they thought was best for themselves.
And, this is not a new story. The core forces were the same in 1929 as they were in 2008. The only thing that changed was where the fragility was hiding. In 1929, it was obvious. Leverage in the stock market, classic runs on the banks. But by 2008, innovation had moved the risk into the shadows, into this opaque world of shadow banking, with complex products like CDOs that almost nobody truly understood. The ghost is the same. It just finds a new, more complicated machine to haunt.
So what have we learned from all this? How do you even begin to manage a system that has these ghosts baked into its very design? Well, the modern approach isn't really to prevent the storm from ever happening. It's to build a system that can bend in the wind without completely breaking.
So how do we build these financial shock absorbers? The big answer today lies in something called macroprudential policies. It's a fancy term, but the idea is pretty simple. It's about making rules to protect the whole forest, not just one individual tree. So you get things like counter-cyclical capital buffers. It just means we force banks to save up capital during the good times so they have a cushion for the inevitable bad times. And liquidity coverage ratios. That just means banks have to hold enough cash or stuff they can sell for cash really fast to survive a 30-day panic on their own. The goal is resilience, not trying to completely eliminate risk.
But this brings us to the final lingering question. We've built all these rules to fight the last war, to prevent another 2008. But finance never, ever stands still. It's constantly innovating, constantly evolving, always searching for new returns in the unregulated shadows just beyond our line of sight. Those core forces, confidence, liquidity, leverage, they haven't gone anywhere. They're permanent. So the question we have to keep asking ourselves is this: what new form will they take next? And where, right now, is the next crisis quietly being built?